What's good, y'all? Super excited. Let's jump into it. My camera settings for shooting video. Wah-ba-ba. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about one of the most important things to remember when shooting video: the 180-degree shutter angle rule. What is this rule and what does it mean? Okay, essentially, what the 180-degree shutter angle rule means is you need to be shooting double your frame rate. Think about it this way: when you're shooting photo, you're shooting based on a mechanical shutter. So every time you click, you have that one shutter. Whereas video, you have a mechanical shutter, but there is an electrical shutter that is stimulated. So what happens, especially with DSLRs, if you were recording video through one simple shutter, you would be picking up the sound of that shutter with the video. So what happens is a mechanical shutter opens, and when this opens, an electrical shutter is simulated, and this is done whilst, again, the mechanical shutter is open, and that's how you're able to kind of get this video image to come through. However, again, you want to remember that you need to be doubling the frame rate in order to protect this. However, you don't want to go over doubling your frame rate. Why? Because the more you increase your shutter count, the more you give to that, the less true the movement is going to be to the natural eye. Again, so the higher the shutter count, the more detail, the more imagery your camera is going to be able to capture, and the sharper the image. So you're not going to have that motion blur, and motion blur is natural, guys. It is natural to the human eye, so you want that. If you do not have that motion blur, it's not going to feel realistic. You're not going to have realism. People are not going to feel like they are really there, embedded in the film, part of the actual experience. So moving forward, what are my camera settings? Well, my favorite camera settings of all are obviously shooting at 24 frames per second. Now this is the ultimate, this is the best, this is that cinematic look that everyone is usually going for and you see in films. So I'm shooting usually at 24 FPS, and then my shutter count is at 50. Now this is what I'm shooting probably 75-80% of the time. If my camera's on sticks, it's at 24. If I've got it on a gimbal, it's at 24. If I'm going for shaky, rocky footage, anything aggressive, it's at 24. The only time I'm not shooting at 24 is if I have my camera on a piece of stabilization gear, and I'm going for a specific B-roll shot or something where it needs to have slow motion. The only other case is when I'm shooting for broadcast or commercial. A lot of the stuff that you'll see on broadcast or digital kind of commercial end is going to be shot at 29.97 or 30 frames per second. And with that being the case, if I was doing that, I would shoot with my shutter at 60. Next, guys, my most common and used camera is my Canon 5D Mark IV with C-Log installed. That is real C-Log installed. I highly recommend it. Feels like a cinema body. Absolutely incredible, amazing colors. Anyways, tangent over. With this, if I'm shooting for slow motion, unfortunately I am limited to 60 frames per second, but that's okay. I will shoot with that and put my shutter count at 125. It gives me incredibly stabilized and smooth footage. And at the end of the day, guys, I don't really necessarily need 120. It's great to have. There's certain shots where I would love to use it, but it's not the end all. I don't have to have it. And frankly, slow motion is overplayed and overdone, especially when it comes to the digital realm. Anything on YouTube and Vimeo, it's way overplayed. And I think when people start relying on slow motion a ton, it really makes them lack, and it really hinders their creativity. Again, second tangent over. Now, if I am going for super smooth footage, I think you guys get the point here. Double the frame rate. So if I'm going for that 120 FPS, my shutter is going to be at 250, so on and so forth. The other key factor I just want to introduce and talk about briefly is ND filters. Guys, if you're shooting outside, remember, I know you have to make sacrifices here and there, to kind of get your exposure and everything proper. But ISO, we want to keep bare minimum bottom always. So ISO at 100 when we're shooting outside. Now we want to keep aperture where we have some great pool. You know, we want to keep it at 2.8 or a 4 or something below that, unless, you know, you're trying to have a lot in focus. If you're going for a long a landscape or something like that, an establishing shot, you might need that, you know, that f8 or that f12. But for the most part, we're going for like an f2 or something like that. In order to have that and protect that and not boost your shutter count, you need ND filters. And rather than having multiple, so you have an ND2, an ND4, an ND8, you know, you can hit all these stops, get a variable ND. Variable ND filters are amazing, guys. They essentially do what multiple NDs do through one filter. It's just rotating it slightly. Actually, one second. Here you are. I have my Tiffen variable ND, as you can see right here, guys. You can literally see the difference. How much light is being let in and let out. Super cool, super easy to use. And again, it's gonna save the day. And I got this additional ring here for like $6. It just changes the ring length that you can attach it to. So rather than having to get, again, you know, multiple variable NDs, I got that little ring piece, and now I can literally put this variable ND on every single one of my lenses, so I can use all my lenses outside. So it just makes shooting overall easier, better, more efficient, and I'm just gonna get a lot better, awesome shots. Hell yeah. All right, guys, that's it. Those are my camera settings for shooting video. I hope to help y'all. And lastly, don't shoot auto white balance. Please properly expose and set your temperature to the scene. Thank you very much. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you next time.